Okay.
So, there are only 5 basic fears that we all live by.
How many?
5 only.
How many?
5.
Is Simon the only one in the room? How many? 5.
A definition, simple definition of fear is an anxious feeling caused by our anticipation of some imagined event or experience. An anxious feeling caused by our anticipation of some imagined event or experience.
Some imagined event.
Yep. And it's a standardised biological reaction that medical experts tell us that we get. So in terms of the 5, we kind of went through as a group and kind of picked out our primary. So, do you want to
I found that interesting because I've kind of like what you said about anger. I just thought fear was fear, like you couldn't categorise it. And 3 that stood out for me were extinction, which is fear of death, basically. Not for myself, but people I know. Separation, which is the fear of abandonment, etc. And ego death, which is the fear of humiliation. So when you think about your fear, because we all discussed fear of when you've got to prospect people, and we've kind of said before reading this, like you don't know why you're not doing it, and then you kind of realise that it actually does go back down to a fear of them going, oh, fuck off. Like, you know,
that humiliation and shame that you feel.
Without realising that's a fear. And I found on the same lines, like the fear of fear. Where does it say that?
President Franklin D. Roosevelt said, the only thing we need to fear is
fear itself. Yeah.
I've lost the bit.
I had, for Katie May, it was a loss of autonomy. That's one of the other fears you can feel, which is a fear of being immobilised, paralysed, restricted, enveloped, overwhelmed, entrapped, imprisoned, smothered or controlled by circumstances. So that was Katie May's primary fear. For me it was kind of a bit of a fear of extinction, having lost my dad when he was 56 and my sister when she was 34. There's me and my mum, and I suppose everything that happens to me now, I've got a fear that I'm next, kind of thing. You know, so that really affects me quite a lot. So the 5, just to go through them again: extinction, mutilation, loss of autonomy, separation, and ego death. Interestingly, as well, just to go with the anger group, fear is often the base emotion on which anger floats. As well. So that was interesting.
Found it.
You found it, yeah.
There was a section there. There was a second section. Are you going to cover that? The mouse descendants.
Yes, I was going to cover that in a moment. Once Taylor.
I was just going to go on to that about on the next page. You said about fearing your fear, when you avoid doing things and you don't really know why you don't do them, and it's actually a fear of feeling, fear that might be caused by doing that action. But regarding the mice, I said I found that quite interesting because I've got a fear of planes and flying, which is irrational because nothing bad's ever happened to me on a plane. And when I thought about it, I said, like, my mum doesn't like flying or won't go anywhere near a plane, and my granddad says the exact same thing. And none of us have any reason
3 generations
to fear it.
What does it say in there?
So they did an experiment with mice where I suppose the grandparent of the mice were the first ones that they introduced a smell which was similar to cherries and almonds, and at the same time they introduced the smell into the run. They gave the mice shocks, so the mice caused the mice pain, so they became associated, that smell, eventually there was no shock introduced, but as soon as they smelt it,
reacted in fear.
They reacted to it.
And then the next few generations, even though they'd never been shocked, when they were exposed to the smell, they were like, oh shit, but nothing bad had happened to them.
Yeah. That's crazy. Genetic imprint from traumatic experiences carries through at least 2 generations. is what they say.
Now, the fascinating thing in that article as well is they bred them naturally, but they also did artificial insemination, and it's still transgressed.
Yeah.
It's in the genes.
So you could be fearing something in your lifetime that has nothing to do with you.
I think the last thing to sum up, when we talk about fear, we think about fear of failure, fear of rejection, but really you might have thought, well, where is fear of rejection, fear of failure? But we actually chunk that up to one of those 5 fears. So fear of failure is actually, you can read that as fear of ego death, and fear of rejection is fear of separation. So if you think about the common labels for fears that we get given, you can actually chunk it up to one of those 5 fears. That's what